Hi, friends. How's it going? Happy Monday, Rob. Bless the time zone changes, and only this time. Good, barely not morning anymore, right? I'm mostly lurking because of work. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have me on in the background while you're working and kind of just starting to get into your week, then by all means, no problem. We're just going to keep it chill today, like every stream, really. Just not intense, relaxing. We're going to do some journaling and some drawing. So I hope you had a good weekend. Happy time zone wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. British Columbia changed our clocks yesterday, or as of yesterday, sprang forward for the last time. So if you're not aware, we change our clocks, right? Spring forward, fall back. British Columbia has now decided that we're not going to be changing our times anymore. So permanent daylight savings. I think personally, I like it. If you're a parent, then you'll know that routines are everything with your kids. Routines are everything for my twins, have always been. So even an hour forward or back just throws us off, throws them off, which throws me off. So I, for one, can't wait just to get into, our bodies being used to doing things at a certain, point of the day, regardless of the time. So hopefully it's going to be okay, but looking forward to it. So yeah, I'm a little off today, probably because it just feels like it's supposed to be, a little earlier. So, it is also very rainy out. So welcome to Vancouver area. We're into the rain, but it does kind of feel like spring. So I'm happy about that. We have another 3 weeks of being this close in time. Oh no. But we'll take it. We'll take what we can get. How old? My twins are 7 years old. Yeah, it does cause funkiness. And because they're twins, we've had to, from the get-go, kind of, stick to routines, rely on doing things at a certain time or a certain point of the day. Sleep is everything. Even if they don't have, just enough sleep, it will throw them off. It will throw us off. It will, it'll just wreak havoc throughout the day. It's one of those things. And so, yeah, sleep is really, really important. And if we don't get enough of it, but that being said, I'm kind of looking forward to having longer nights, like longer evenings, especially. When the kids come home from school and there's just so much more time to do things, be outside, play on the playground after school and stuff like that. Just the little things. I'm kind of looking forward to that. So we'll see. We'll see how the adjustment goes. And there are a couple of provinces, at least in Canada, that don't have time changes. And so we'll see. Okay, so before I get into it, I did want to say, if you are, so today is Monday, and Mondays I tend to be in my planner. So we'll do a little bit of back planning or memory keeping, and we'll also do a little bit of drawing, and I'll talk about my planner and journal and stuff like that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask always. But also I wanted to let you know that my recent YouTube video, and I'll share it here, is about my planner, like how I'm using my planners and journals in February. So how that kind of went. And so if you're interested in that, take a look. So just how I'm using my planners and journals, how I'm using them in terms of keeping or staying functional, but also creative. So if you kind of like using different notebooks or notebook systems for planning, but also having a space to, do some memory keeping or some journaling or just general writing, take a look at that. And what else? Last Wednesday, we did a little bit of painting, which I like to do on Wednesdays. It's midweek. I like to take out my inks and just kind of play around. So we did a little bit of painting with the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo inks, all 4 of them. The latest that will be released soon, I think sometime in April, is called Murky Pond Water, and it's with Robert Oster and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo, and I really like this shade. It's like a gray with a lot of undertones of other colors and shades. And so we did that on Wednesday and just kind of, explored and had fun with inks. So if you're interested in that, the VOD is up and the replay is on YouTube as well. So take a look at that if you're interested. But because I did really like the new ink, and I have a sample of it, so Helen kindly gave me a sample of the ink, even though it hasn't been released yet. But I'm really excited for it to come out. I inked up a pen with it. So today we'll do a little bit of writing with it and journaling. Just, again, having fun with inks and fountain pens and other stationery accessories. Yeah, I'm excited for that ink. I'm glad. I personally like dark inks and inks that are legible and easy to read without being too distracting. And so, grays are right up my alley. And I love that this is a gray that has, more shades to it, because I have flat grays, I have standard grays, I have light grays, dark grays. And it's kind of nice to have something, that's a color, but it also has, other shades to it, like other properties or something interesting about it, right? That makes it stand out. And so that's what I kind of appreciate about this one, is that it's just like a little bit more interesting than your standard gray. And it's dark enough that, it's not hard to read or, illegible at all. So, it's kind of fun. So we'll see. I'll show you and we'll do a little bit of writing. But I'll kind of start with doing a little bit of back planning, which is, just taking a look at the previous week and looking at what I had scheduled, my appointments, events, stuff like that. And then just putting some of the highlights into my vertical weekly layout. And the planner I'm using here is the Hemlock and Oak weekly and daily planner. The paper is their archivist paper, which is new for this year. It was specially formulated for Hemlock and Oak. And so, I've been having fun playing around with it. It's a 70 GSM paper, fountain pen friendly and very, very nice. Handles all kinds of inks, stamps, light painting. So yeah, I've been having fun using it. So how I'm actually using the week's or the weekly pages is basically looking at the previous week and, putting in just highlights, and then also using stickers and washi tape and stuff like that to kind of bring out visual aspects of it. And again, using my fountain pen to note some things down. So that's kind of it. And then I also use, if you're kind of a visual scheduler or a visual person who likes to see colors and things sort of laid out, I use time blocking with dual brush pens. So my Tombow dual brush pens, I just use different colors for different themes or different things that mean something to me. And so if I look at my schedule, I could just kind of pinpoint where certain things are, depending on who it involves and stuff like that. So I personally kind of like this time blocking where I don't have to write everything out per se. I just use the colors to kind of show me, and using the timeline to kind of indicate where those events are going to be. So that's how I kind of set it up. And then when I look back at the previous week, so this would be last week, March 2nd to 8th. And then I just go in on Mondays usually with my fountain pen I'm using a Leonardo Momento Zero with a reverse architect nib. And then I just write down, what actually happened, and maybe a couple of lines about it. If not, just keeping it very simple. I don't like to write too much in this. So Twitch stream last Monday. Again, we did some journaling and drawing. So the thing I like about this fountain pen nib is that it's a reverse architect, so it gives me two varying styles of writing depending on what side of the nib I'm using. It's custom ground, so it's ground to my sort of angle of writing as well. And it was ground by Gena from Custom Nib Studio. And I personally love this nib and this pen too. It's just really smooth and really fun. So last Wednesday, Twitch stream, we did some painting. I just do a little bit of doodling just to kind of fill up the space. And since it's the end of term 2 at school, we had conference with the teacher. It's called student-led conference. And it just means that it's focused on celebrating the wins and, kind of encouraging your kids and seeing how they've kind of achieved their goals for the last term, setting new goals for the coming term. And while I get super, super nervous, it's always, I don't know, it's something about like meeting with a teacher, right? But it's fine, right? It's always kind of meant to be a way to, show how your kids are doing really well in school versus, what they should be working on. It's more so, what's working well, how are they growing, what are some improvements or developments that we've seen since September. And so, having twins in the same grade, in the same class too, is kind of interesting. Seeing how they're two individuals with unique personalities and unique ways of learning. And I always find it kind of interesting to see how, how they kind of grow themselves and work on their goals, and they have separate goals too, and interests and things like that. So it's pretty interesting to see that. Hi, Indy, how's it going? So I've now got my daughter and cousin on the fountain pen train as well. Look at you, Deepanzi. You're penabling people. That's awesome. I love that. How is your kakeno? I think I've seen a little bit in other streams where you kind of mentioned that you enjoyed it or that you've tried it out and stuff. How are you liking it? And have you changed out the inks yet? Or are you kind of stuck to, are you happy with using your ink that you have it inked with? So, not much. I don't think last week was too not eventful, but too, intense or anything like that. No school on Friday because of the parent-teacher conference things. And then half day on Thursday. And then on Sunday, we sprung forward. I always like this. I'm kind of sad that I'm not going to be able to use this sticker anymore, actually. And it's from TheCoffeeMonsterzCo. And there's a spring forward and fall back sticker. And it's just kind of fun to, you know, highlight the time changes. And I'm kind of sad that I won't be using them anymore, but also kind of happy. So, and happy International Women's Day. It's another sticker there. It's kind of fun to add these things in. So I'm going to add some more stickers, washi tape, somewhere here. Just gonna fill up the space a little bit just because, you know, there's a lot of white space. I don't usually plan things for the evenings or afternoons too much. So for me, that's kind of a nice space to add stickers or washi just to fill up the space a little bit. So if you do have, you know, washi tape or other excess stamps is a great space filler too. It's like dig them out. So dig them out and use them, right? Have some fun with them. I think I'm going to, let's see. I'm gonna add this one. Always fun when you can get other friends into pens. Yeah, for sure. I'm really enjoying it. I stuck to the cartridge that came with it. Okay, cool. So you can get an idea of how long it lasts. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Fill up your cart. Add things that you need and stuff like that. Things that you want to try out. But yes, that's a good idea to use a cartridge. I did that too with my first pens, is like just use what comes with it, because then you get a feel for what it's meant to, you know, write like or be like or whatever. And then play around with it. But also, you know, a lot of us are impatient and we want to try all the things. So I think the cartridges hold more ink than the converters. Yeah, I think so too, right? It feels like it anyways. Just because there's more space for the cartridge to sit in your pen. So usually, and depending on the converter as well, I think, but usually I find you can probably get a little bit more in your cartridge. I almost always have a cart going on in pen places. Yeah. I always have wish lists by retailer. Sometimes, like depending on the retailer, obviously, not all the retailers ever, but for some retailers where I tend to order from often, I usually have a running wish list. Just, you know, if I need to, if like they have it in stock and I'm getting something else and I want it, you know, at that time, I feel like I can use it and make the most of it and stuff like that. Then usually, you know, I look through my wish lists and add things, but depends who it is, I guess. And if free shipping, depending on your cart size, makes a difference too, sometimes it's like you might as well add, you know, an ink or cartridges or something like that just to bump you up. If my daughter is getting into this, I have to be careful about letting her know about the ink rabbit hole. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. My kids are kind of into fountain pens. Like they have, you know, starter fountain pens. They have ink samples that they play with. They don't use fountain pens all the time. Like, it's one of those things. They're kids. So every once in a while, they're like, oh, yeah, let's play with our fountain pens. And they'll get them out, and they love their shimmer inks. But yes, sometimes it's just a matter of getting ink on their hands and getting ink on the tables, and just somehow it happens. But it'll be pretty. Paint your room with ink. Who else does samples? I think Kyuseido does samples. I don't know if... I'm trying to think. Some other smaller shops do. Van Ness, I think, does. Truffet. Pen Chalet. Yeah, I think there's a few who I've seen do samples. I think there's a few more probably that do it. It just makes sense, right? Like, especially now, like when prices are just higher for things and people are kind of reevaluating how much they're getting and whether or not they need to buy all of those bottles of inks anymore and stuff. It just makes sense. Like, why not offer samples? And why not try samples to find what you actually like? Or just, cycle through certain samples. And then when you feel like getting an ink bottle, then you have some samples to choose from. My wife and I are heading to NY in April, and we're going to Kyuseido. Awesome. Yeah. I don't know if she knows we're going, but we are. Well, it's happening. Yeah, Kyuseido, I've never been, but definitely I think is a stop. Yeah, there's a few places I think that'll be fun to stop by. Okay, so I think I'm good with this. I used up a little bit of washi tape as well, so I'm happy with that. All right, so that is how I use my vertical weekly spread in this planner. And this is an undated planner, so really, I mean, if I don't want to do a weekly spread, or I'm busy or traveling or something like that, I feel like it's low pressure, low key. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, right? So I love that about this undated planner. And then the daily pages, they're also undated, but there's enough for a whole year. But I have not been using this every single day, and that's fine. So I will have, a bunch of blank pages, but it's all good. So the way I'm using the daily pages is just whenever I have time, when I can get in here. I've been practicing floral drawing from a reference. So I use this book called Flower Color Guide by Taylor and Michael Putnam, and it's just like a coffee book type reference book with just a bunch of flower pictures, by color, and they're really lovely photos. So it's a great way, to look at a photo and just practice drawing what you're seeing from reference. You can do it by looking up images online, etc. But since I have this book, I thought, what a great way to kind of, choose a flower, and then kind of focus on the shapes that I'm seeing, the colors, and trying to capture that onto paper. And it's a great practice for me, because in my creative practice, if I can kind of work on building my muscle memory on how to draw flowers, then when I do it in an abstract way or from memory, then I can kind of pull from what I've already seen. So it's kind of fun to do it, but also there's a point to doing it as well for me. So that's what I do. practice a little bit of drawing, and then I do a little bit of journaling. And I use a prompt for this, and I get them from this book called The Pivot Year. And it's just, 365 different passages or, pieces of writing that is meant to get you thinking kind of just, where your life is headed. If you're on a creative path, how are you sort of moving yourself forward? And just a little bit of introspective work. So I kind of like journaling sometimes based on something I've read, right? So you can transcribe it and then write your personal thoughts about it or whatever comes to mind. And I kind of like doing that because it's different than just writing about your day or writing about something you're thinking about, which I also like doing, but I have different books for that and different journals for that. So for the purpose of this planner, I kind of like filling up that empty space with just transcribing something and then including my thoughts around it. So that's what I kind of use my daily pages for. A subscription box for pens and ink. Very interesting. All right, so what I'm going to use for drawing and coloring the flowers is... So what I'm going to do is I actually picked the flowers that I want to draw today. Sometimes I do it just by randomly opening up a page and then deciding if I want to draw it. And I kind of like the challenge of that. But I also sometimes like to pick out something that I'm drawn to, based on colors or the shape of the flower, the type of flower. And so I think this is a nice contrast to what we did last week. And so I'm going to go with this one. It's a chrysanthemum and really pretty sort of lilac lavender color. So for the color, I'm going to use dual brush pens, which I'll pick out in a second. But to transfer the color onto the page, I use these colorless blenders. You may have seen them before, especially if you buy sets of Tombow dual brushes. Sometimes this is included in a set. It has no color. That's why it's called a colorless blender. And it is literally a dual brush marker with no color attached to it. And the reason why this is so handy is because you can either use it to blend two colors together when you're hand lettering or coloring. Or what you can do is you can transfer color from your markers onto a blending palette or some kind of shiny surface that will pick up your color. And then using the colorless blender, you can then pick up those different colors, mixing them and blending them if you want to, and then putting it directly on the paper. And the reason why I like doing it is not just to kind of push myself to use my tools in different and creative ways, but I also really like the effect that it gives me. So it kind of looks more like a watercolor effect, as almost like you're using a brush to add color to your page. And I really like that effect. So as a person who loves watercolor paints, it's no surprise. So that's how I use the colorless blenders. And that's how I'm going to add color to it. So I'm going to pick out my colors. So here's my set of dual brush markers. And one way of picking out colors is using a reference chart for the markers. But, sometimes it's also kind of fun to just look at colors and pick out something that you think is a great match to something. So I'm just gonna, let's try. And sometimes I find that, the color of the marker might vary a little bit from what you see in the reference chart and what you actually see on paper, because it depends on what paper you're using. It depends on how dark you're going with it or how saturated it is. So let's see. These are actually two great colors. So I might actually use both of them. And then a green. With a light green. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I usually do 4 colors just because it's more interesting and also gives you some room to kind of blend and mix a little bit as well. So we're going to go with soft spring colors, nothing too wintry, nothing too dark. So adding those colors to my blending palette. Yeah, the subscription box is okay, but I like picking up my own inks. That's my only thing with subscription boxes, is that if you're new to, stationery, or you're not sure what you like and you're open to recommendations, you're open to trying different things, and your budget allows for it, of course, then subscription boxes are kind of fun, especially if you like surprises and you're kind of, open to, to just trying things and figuring out if you like it or not. Plus, you can always pass it on or resell things if you wanted to, I guess. But yeah, I've done subscription boxes before, and it's just one of those things. Like if I don't feel like I can use something, it just feels like, kind of a waste for me. So, but I do understand how, like, I can see why people would love subscription boxes. It's just fun, right? Like, depends on the cost, but most of the time, if it's affordable and, it's just like a little bit of fun, then. I've been trying to find a good source for prompts. Yeah, finding a good source, it takes a little bit of time to search for things. And I find that I don't necessarily do it every day. And so for me, it's like if I have a book or if I have something already that I can sort of reach for, just to kind of make myself think a little bit about other things, or get myself out of, worrying about stuff, then it's kind of, I do it that way. But no, I agree. It's tough sometimes to find the prompts that will then prompt you to think and to write about it. Because sometimes I read things and I'm just like, I have no thoughts about this. I have no opinion. I did the subscription box for a couple months, but really just like picking out a bunch of samples until I get free shipping. Yeah, I'm similar. Roses are good. I should do that. Yeah, I don't have the confidence to grow them in my garden, so I enjoy looking at roses and pictures instead. Yeah. My dad's like, he has rose bushes, but they are very finicky. We have a rose, I wouldn't call it a rose bush. It's more so just, rose stems that grow. But we've tried everything to kill it because I'm like, it was there when we moved in and my kids were like 2 years old. And I was always kind of worried that they would touch it and, thorns and things like that. So we tried to kill it at first, but it won't go away. It just keeps coming back. And it keeps coming back stronger. So they're now at an age where they're not going to touch it, because they know. So we're kind of like, well, if it grows, it grows. They are pretty roses, so, we'll leave them. I do nothing to encourage them. But I think it's, the climate, the soil, just whatever works. It's resilient in that way. I find some flowers and some certain flowers are resilient. And even if you don't encourage them or go out of your way to like help them grow and stuff, they will just keep growing, I guess. Yeah, it really depends on my mood. It'd be nice to just order it when I feel like, yeah. Yes, you can recommend it to a family member as a gift for me. Like the ink vent is a great idea for that. To have that for, the holidays or just end of year kind of thing. But yeah, it's tough when, yeah, a gift is nice, even for yourself. Like if you're going to buy it as like, this is my treat. But if it's a subscription and you kind of, do it month over month or however the routine is or whatever, it's kind of tough if you don't on a consistent basis find at least a few things in there that you like. But, there's no guarantees. I have the invincible rose. Yeah, you need one of those. I'm not naturally a green thumb. Like I like gardening, but not as much as I like stationery, right? If that makes sense. Like I do like being outside in the garden and tending to it and stuff like that and planting things. And I have indoor plants. So I'm kind of like I don't kill all my plants, but I'm also not like super invested in upkeep. But when there's like something that's there, and like I said, it was there when we moved into the house, like in our backyard, and it has just not gone away. And part of me just like looks forward to seeing it bloom. We're like, hi, rose stems. Really, yeah, it's just this random sort of, it's not even a bush. It's like, okay, if you're gonna grow. Oh, Monday, yes. Hello, Hellcat. It's a Monday. It's a new week. Yeah, there's not enough time for all the hobbies. Yes, unless you're all the hobbies. Unless you're Kimberly, then you do have time for all the hobbies. But, yeah, lean into what brings joy. Yeah, and sometimes that varies, like maybe by season too. Maybe you're not gardening all year round. Like maybe you're not into indoor plants or you're just into like vegetable gardening and stuff like that. And yeah, that's super cool. I like things, especially in spring and summer, that get me out of the house as well, because otherwise I will just stay indoors and become a hermit. So if I have something that I can look forward to doing to keep me busy while I'm out of the house, gardening is one of those things. Hiking is another. It's just like there's an objective. There's a reason why I should be outdoors doing something, not just kind of wandering around or, I guess I could just sit outside and read, but all right. So, instead of these roses, we're going to draw the chrysanthemums. I know it was a little misleading because you can only see the roses, but we'll do that another day, I promise. Instead, we're going to do these somewhat simple, I think, to draw chrysanthemums, and equally as pretty and springish, spring-like, on theme. So, lovely flowers, right? I think anything that's, that's spring themed, something to look forward to this season. Tricked by the camera frame, I know. Here Magical Quill's like, ooh, let's draw some roses. Plot twist. We're gonna draw not roses. But that's okay. We will draw roses one of these days. I actually did draw roses, I think, at some point. Not these ones, but now that I think about it, and of course I have to see if I did. I did draw, yeah, I drew a simple one. 3. More pink than this like lavenderish color, but we'll do a lavender version. I think it's my desk setup. If only I had more space. So what I'm doing is I'm just picking up some of the color using my Colorless blender, and just kind of, if you if you go over the color with the brush tip, then it will pick up the color, but in a very muted way. So at first when you color with it, it'll be, the saturated version because it's putting down the color that's on the tip there. But then as you keep going, it sort of blends away, and it's more of a softer version of that color. And so you just keep adding more if you want to. And so I'm picking up the color and just transferring it to paper in the shapes that I'm seeing. Just very general, very not spending too much time on it, as you can see. And this one is the softer, it's a softer color, and I'm going to add a little bit of purple on top, or lavender on top. And that way you're kind of blending those colors a little bit. So it's a little harder to do this if you're using the markers directly. I find it a little bit easier to do it with a colorless blender because it just looks softer. It's not as like dark, and layering dark colors or color on top of color is a little bit tougher when you're doing it directly on paper, especially if you're not using like specific like marker paper or a shiny type of paper where your color might stay wet longer. But if you're using, a regular type of paper, even if it's fountain pen friendly or uncoated, it's a little tougher for your water-based markers to stay wet for too long, especially if you're not putting too much down on your paper. So if you're layering 2 colors, it's kind of useful to do this if you're doing like shadows, or you want it to look, kind of a mix of colors, especially with flowers where your petals won't always have just one singular color. A lot of times it's kind of a mix of different colors, at least 2 colors, or, different, or like you kind of get from like dark to light. And it's kind of a nice way of showing contrast as well, I think. These are dual brush pens from Tombow. So you can get them in sets, you can get them singular, and you can get the whole pack, which is 108 colors. But the great thing about these markers, these brush pens, is that they're dual tip. So on one end you have this very broad brush tip, which is useful for hand lettering, or also for coloring or adding color to something. But the other side, the other tip, if I can get the cap off, is like a bullet tip or a fine tip. And so it's great for adding details, writing, or if you're coloring in something small. So sometimes I use it for, like, if I use a brush tip for hand lettering. A lot of times, you know, just because of the nature of lettering, sometimes you kind of miss out. It doesn't look consistent, or you kind of miss a part there. And then you can go over or fill in what you missed with the fine point. So it's handy that way. But the other way is to use it for coloring, and you can do it this way, or you can do it, you know, just marker to paper kind of. But this is kind of fun and just a different way of doing it. So it gets you creative. But this specific marker is a colorless blender. So it's N00, which means it has no color attached to it. It is just a straight up brush pen. And the usefulness of having something like this is for this, you know, you can pick up other colors and as if you're painting almost with it, add it to your page that way. Or you can also add color directly to the tip by coloring it in. So you can take another brush pen and directly add color to the tip. And that way you can blend colors, you can layer them. And as you use this colorless blender, the color will, you know, it will come off of the tip. And so the more you use it, the more it'll clean itself off basically and come back to being colorless. And so that's kind of useful in that way. So you can use it with different colors if you wanted to, and use it in different ways as well. And again, the reason why I'm doing it this way, even though it takes longer and obviously it's more effort and, you know, takes more time to do it. I do it because it's not only just, you know, a creative practice for me. I'm using my supplies in a different way that just gets me more interested in using it. But also probably primarily, it's because I love the effect of watercolor. The way that it looks very soft. And I want to practice that a little bit more. And so if I can do it this way instead of painting all the time, then, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of fun to do it this way. So, and if you have these markers, then, you know, it's another way of using them. And hopefully this encourages you to try it out because it is fun. And the great thing about using a brush marker, especially like something like this, is that you have the shape of a brush. So it's like using a paintbrush, but you're picking up, you know, whatever colors you want, and you don't have to have water that you're rinsing out and, you know, all those things. So it's kind of a mess-free way of doing it. So great for travel, great for portability, or if you have a small space and you just don't want to, you know, have water jars. So just adding some leaves. Again, very like just the shapes of them. Trying not to spend too much time thinking about like what they look like, because I'll draw details on top, so it's not like it matters too much. But I do want to make sure that I add some color just to contrast, you know, the pink purple that we have here. And it doesn't have to look exactly like the drawing, which you can't really see, so I'm sorry about that. Wish I had space. I guess I could put it here. There we go. So it's a little better for you. So like I said, I'm not too worried about the exact, you know, number of leaves or where they are. I'm kind of just basing it on, you know, where they're kind of placed to make it look composed in a similar way. But I'm not going to do, you know, the exact leaves or the exact orientation of them and stuff like that. Like just knowing or just kind of looking at the shapes here, I want to mimic that a little bit. Especially when I'm drawing it, I want to kind of get these sort of jagged edges and the feel of what this leaf looks like. There's a lot of green over here, so maybe I'll do that as well. And then with this colorless blender, you also have the fine tip. So if ever you needed to kind of add a little bit more detail, but in like in a very detailed way, you can do that as well. I don't tend to use this tip too much, but again, you can write with it as well. So if you're hand lettering, or if you're, you know, if you want to put a header on there or something like that, that might be a useful way of using it. But I think I'm okay with this for now. Hi, Pop Out Gal, how's it going? How are you, friend? I finished teaching my class and ran over to join. Yay, I'm glad you're here. Excuse me, Jet fans, why isn't there the set of all the Tombows? I know. I got the Tombow monograph recently and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, that's pretty good. I should also mention I'm part of the Tombow creator crew for the past couple years and a half or something like that. So I have all the Tombow products. So if you do have questions about Tombow or their products in general, how to use certain things, feel free to ask. I probably know the answer. But yeah, so one of the perks is that I have all the markers. So if you have questions about like what colors, you know, are some good colors and stuff like that, feel free to ask. Did anyone see the gentleman stationer cutting down an A5 notebook to slim size? I did not. That's interesting. I think, yeah, I've seen just in general people have done that, but I didn't see that specifically. We do all start finagling. I was like quick asking you questions. I need to join my friends. Yeah, I have stationery things to do. I gotta go. This is very important, okay? Oh, you sat there for 10 minutes. I'm sorry. Trying to figure out the shake mechanism. Yeah, it's super useful though, right? I mean, it's not super useful. It's like a useful add-on. It's kind of like a bonus where it's like, I didn't realize I would need the shake mechanism, like the shake aspect of it, but it kind of does come in handy. Especially after the first time when you figure it out. He said he may offer it when you buy notebooks. Interesting. That's cool. Because then you can get like notebooks that don't come in slim, like Stalogy and stuff like that, probably. Canopus, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And cut it down. Put it into your TNs and... Yeah, it's a nice add-on, but you don't use it super often. Yeah. It's more so kind of like if it's helpful in a situation, then it's cool. Yeah, otherwise it's not like it's not mandatory to make the pen or pencil functional, except for the first time you use it, maybe. Though not really. I'm going to, because it's very light on the page, I'm going to add a little bit of color directly from the marker. And I think I'm going to add this color, the purple lavender color, a little bit more because I want to see that come out a little bit. So you see a little bit of the light, soft version of that. I'm gonna add a little bit more though. And maybe a little bit of this too. And because the shapes are this long sort of, kind of this oval, you know, long shape, adding color in that shape is helpful, especially if you're going to draw the details on top, because then it indicates a little bit what that petal or what those petals are going to look like. So now it looks a little bit darker, but not super, super dark. Like you still have the softness of layering those colors indirectly onto the paper. One thing we can do though is make sure the stems stand out a little bit more. See how that straight line kind of anchoring those flowers. Otherwise they look like they're kind of floating in space, which is fine too, but I think for the purpose of drawing from a reference, I want to make them look more like what I'm seeing. It's kind of so there's a leaf. There we go. So I'm good with that. And I'm also going to swatch the colors. Let's do it here. So then I know what colors I used, but also it shows me what colors I tend to reach for these, you know, for these drawings. Tends to be similar, especially when I'm drawing or coloring leaves. I use the same color sometimes, even though I don't do it on purpose. I'm trying to, you know, use different greens and play around with like bright colors versus softer, cool tones. It just happens, so that's okay. But because I'm not very good at remembering numbers for colors, I find that I have to write it in. So if I ever want to find them again, I can just simply look here. So 192 is it's a green that I use a lot. It's a really nice shade. So there's that. So I'm happy with that. It's very pretty. These colors are very spring. And it dries quickly because it is, they're just brush markers. So it's not like when working with watercolor paints or inks where you kind of have to give them some time to dry and absorb. But because they're brush markers, they're a lot faster. So you can start drawing on them relatively quickly. I'm loving these colors. Yeah, I'm so ready for spring too. I'm definitely ready for more, pastels and pinks and purples. They have the monograph in 03. I don't know if they have them everywhere, but yeah. So to add the details, and just some of these lines that we're seeing, which, I don't tend to add that level of detail with color. What I tend to do is just, have the outlines, have the shapes, the general kind of shapes, and then use that as indicators of where to draw those lines. And again, looking at this as reference, obviously. So kind of how I see those petals layer around each other and on top of each other. And then sometimes looking at the leaves and how they sort of, they're bending inward, outward, moving towards us, moving away from us. That's kind of a fun exercise to figure that out and figure out how to convey that on paper. Similar, to how it's shown here, where you can kind of see there's like dimension to it, right? It's not just, it doesn't feel flat. You can see that it's 3D. And so how do you capture that when you're drawing, in sort of a flat picture? And that's how I kind of attempt these things, is to look at what shapes I see and how they contrast or differ as you kind of move away. So that's why it's helpful to have color underneath, because I can just kind of follow the shapes that I've already put down in terms of color. And I do it pretty quick because I don't want to overthink it in the style that it could just be, line drawings. It doesn't have to be super detailed and perfect. And the other thing too is using white space to either fill up or fill out a little bit more of something that you're drawing. So using a little bit of white space to make it look more full or wider, especially if you don't have color there, is kind of an interesting way of including highlights, or, where it's like very light there. So I don't shy away from using and utilizing some of that white space into my line drawings. So it's there to help out if you need it, just to make your flower look a little fuller or your leaf look a little wider. From down the mountain. Love how you explain and teach the process. I'm literally just talking to myself. So when I do this on my own, I like to have sound. And so I'm glad you're listening. I don't always know what I'm talking about, but I just say things. Do you change your writing ink for each season? I do. Not all of them, but I find that over spring and summer, I tend to include brighter, fun, vibrant colors. Colors that I don't write with year round. So think like pinks, orangey, softer orange colors, coral, sometimes purple. Purple, I'm still kind of working on. I love the color and I love painting with it and seeing it. I don't know if I'm a fan of writing with purple inks. But that being said, sometimes I do incorporate it. magenta. These are the colors that I don't write with in like colder months because it just is too much for me. So come like fall and winter, I tend to go towards the earthy, neutral colors, more blues, more greens, browns for sure. But yeah, once it starts to warm up, I'm like, bring me the fun, bright colors because I don't mind seeing it on paper. Let's see. We're definitely in our tornado season. Uh-oh. Oh no, sending good vibes to you, Pop Pal Gal. Uh-oh. Yeah, please be kind. Hopefully it's not too bad. It's always kind of scary, isn't it? Because you never know. Can't control Mother Nature in that way. But you can definitely ask. Yeah, you do too, Papa Cal? That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Share your seasonal inks and whether or not you change your ink colors. Yours is fairly static, Hellcat. Interesting. Yeah, especially if you're a fan of what you use or you know what you like, right? Why force it or why, do something that you're just not drawn to. So I keep one pen with black or near black for general writing year round. Yeah. And then you rotate colors inspired by the landscapes I see. I actually love that. That's awesome. Tag Stationery Soft Snow on Ohara is a wonderful purple. I'm gonna look that up. Ooh, seconding that. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Dark, moody purple. It is soft. It is dark, but I find it a little softer. In just that it's not like a purple, like a black purple. That is nice. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. That's very nice. It's not like a bright purple. I like that. Time to get a sample. I never use black ink. Interesting. Do you use like grays or something? Or are you just like, I'm not gonna do near black either? I'll probably always keep at least one pen inked in black for outlines and writing certain things. Yeah. Yeah, the fun colors for your planner, for your journal, for like, I find too for things where I don't, like I can spend some time just having fun with it instead of trying to just write notes. Where like for note taking, I have my black, purple, blue and browns. And then the other colors are seasonal and also just for fun journaling. Yeah, rotate seasonal colors. Yeah, right? It gives you a reason to use your inks, especially if you're like, I like bright colors, but like, why do I have the inks? I love the idea of landscapes too, yeah. It's dark, but not a jerk about it. Yeah, I like that. That's a good description. It is a nice purple. I like it. Yeah. Blue or blue black. Yeah, that makes sense. Grays, yeah. Sometimes I find black is yeah, it's a little aggressive. Especially I think for me, I tend not to use black for journaling because it just feels aggressive, which makes no sense, I think. But if for note taking, it's fine because it's like it stands out. I can read it. It's simple, you know. But for journaling, I find it's like, why am I using black? Why is it yelling at me? Which is such, it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to make sense. I do like dark versions of colors as well. Or the gray, like gray blues, you know, gray purples, things like that. Where they're not like super saturated and vibrant. That's like year round kind of moods, year round mood. Blue ink. The blue ink hater crew. I get it if it's like super bright blue. It just screams school to me. But at the same time, I kind of like bright blue for just taking notes and things. Like just writing down something where it's going to like stand out. And it's just like a note, a reference or something, you know. Blue grays, yeah, for dark BB. It's higher contrast is my main reason to preferring black over blue. Yeah, that's true. I mainly use broader, juicier nibs. Yeah, that's me. Black can be a jerk sometimes. Yeah, it's like, it's too much. I do like black in finer points. So yeah, maybe that's why. My favorite was my Platinum 3776 with a UEF, like ultra extra fine nib, and carbon black ink, because it's like jet black, but it's an needlepoint or like a 0.38 or something, you know, if we're talking like, or like this, which is an 005, the most like the finest nib point or fine point. Just because, yeah, especially if you're using colors with it, I just find it's like very intrusive. It's like, why do you need to be so bold and so dark? But also, you know, I've used black ink so much that I think it just doesn't scream like fun, creative, you know. It just kind of, it's there for a reason. Either it's adding detail to something, or it's note taking, so it has information I need. It has a point. I think it has a point to it. Whereas if I'm using fun, bright colors for writing, especially, it is just for fun. I'm not so nitpicky about like it has to be super legible or, you know, yeah. So if I am using bright colors, it's intended for creative purposes, and nothing that I have to kind of look at over and over again, just because it can be a bit much, a little overwhelming sometimes. The forever struggle between comfortable to read and this color speaks to me. Yes, I feel seen. It is a struggle, isn't it? And also the balance between like, this is a grown-up thing that I'm doing. I'm taking notes about, you know, something, versus like, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm just writing for the sake of seeing color on my page. It's like, let's take this seriously and use your black and your blue versus using your like bright pink and purple. I wish I was I wish I was a person that could use like beige or mute colors, because it is very gentle and very soft, and at the same time I can't see it. So it's like I wish I was the person that could use like beige and tan and, you know, sand colors, because they're very soft and, you know, gentle for the eyes. but at the same time, I can't see them. They're not legible enough. And so I tend to paint with them more. I have a sample of Tono and Limbs, or is it Linen Toolbar? Bubble Tea. And it's this very soft, beige pink color, which is like very, like a milk tea color. So that makes sense. But at the same time, it's like I can't see it if I'm writing with it. And there's like tons of other shades and ink colors like that. Or soft pinks, where it's like it's very soft and gentle and easy on your eyes, but at the same time, my eyes can't read that. This reminds me I wanted to ink up Paradise Blue again. Kaweco Paradise Blue and Papier Plume Peacock Blue. Ah, let me look up Papier Plume. Wow. That is blue. Yeah, this is very bright. How fun. Kaweco Paradise Blue. Ooh, I like this. That's like a very fun teal. Teal blue. I like it. Yeah, I like it too. It's making me really think about why I use what I use. I agree. Also giving other ideas. Yeah, for sure. Yellow on cream pages. Cream on cream. Like, why am I writing with this on Midori? It's just gonna be like cream. Yeah, it's perfect for sunnier days. These like bright colors for sure are like so good when it's like sunny and summery and easier to read, I find, when it's like very well lit, very bright and sunny. Dusted Truffle is shimmer. A Diamine Truffle is shimmer, but great for that color. Oh. Yeah, I love seeing people that decorate and write with all neutral colors. I like color. Yeah, that's me in like the fall and winter months, especially in the winter months. I can't be bothered with color. It's like, unless I'm, painting or I'm doing it for a specific reason. I don't ink up my pens in a lot of different colors. I can't. I'm just like, why is it so fun and bright? I'm in winter. Better than Konpeki. Yeah. Hi, Archeo Pen. How's it going? Blues. Tono and Limbs has a fantastic medium blue shader. Welcome, Yom. Ooh. Ooh. Look at that one. A medium turquoise blue, yeah. Leans more to blue. Well, it's kind of like, like beach vibes, ocean vibes. I like it. Definitely a summer color. I love it. Spicy miso, how's it going, friend? Winter, I'm all blues and more winter colors. I'm exactly the same way. And like darker shades. Like I'll do, the purples and stuff, but it's like purple black. Like it has to be the darkest version of that color if I'm going to do colors. Just to keep it interesting, but also not to like, be too bright. You skip the panda pen. Yeah. Something else will come along. Something else will come along. We'll be all over it then. Hot take. Spicy. Coming in spicy. Konpeki is overrated. I mean, I like Konpeki, but I feel like there's a lot of different blues that hit the same way. So I'm not going to fight you about that. It's quite flat. Yeah. Mont Blanc Cool Blue. It's not blue. It's the cool version of blue that's not blue. Let's see if we can find it. Oh, cold blue. Is it cold blue? Maybe. Tell me if this is what you mean. I like it. I like the shade. A dark... That's a moody blue. That's like cloudy, gloomy days, but in a color. Like if you're not going to go the gray route, this is what it is. This is like perfect winter colors. Stormy inks are your moody stormy inks are my weakness. You know what? I could do moody stormy inks all winter long. And probably all year long, but less less during like summer and spring months. But it's like one of those inks that is like an all year inker. All year round. Until you write with it, it's way more gray. Interesting. Okay, so that's what you mean. Yeah. Interesting. You know what? I wanted to write like that. I wanted to write like the blue grade is. More blue than gray. Okay, we'll wait for you, Papa Gal. It's what Konpeki wishes it could be. I'm a Euro. This is bright too. Yeah, I'm a Euro. I have a sample of this that I've inked up my one of my sailor pens in. It is bright. So it only gets a medium nib because I don't want too much of it on the paper. I don't like how much I like that dark blue ink. Yeah, but you know what? If it writes really gray, I don't know. Around the World in 80 Days. Oh, I wanted to ask people's thoughts on Iron Gall inks. Yeah. I have not tried an Iron Gall ink, but I have heard that they can be finicky. Like in terms of, don't leave it in your pen for too long. Probably similar to like a pigment ink vibe. Like just, careful how long you keep it in a pen and what pen maybe you ink it up with. Because I think Iron Gall can be a little aggressive on certain pens. I think. It's just based on what I've heard. I don't have personal experience with them. So maybe someone else who knows more. Switchman Pen Co. From Dromgools, the big iron is a fantastic blue-gray. Oh. Let's look that up. Gunmetal blue. Yeah. Do you know if it writes like this? Let's see, one out of... Oh, wow. Okay. That is a nice color. Yeah. Twisby BB is Iron Gall. 100% approve her brown ink choices here. I like brown inks. Let's see. Sailor Agent of Black. These are black, gray. Here we go. Brown. Monteverde Moonstone. I haven't tried that. Is this still around? Tsukushi. Nostalgic Honey. That's a nice shade. I know. Every time I see Nostalgic Honey in like a swatch or someone using it, I always think I should have gotten a bottle. Like when it was, you know, I got Gentle Green, which I love. But Nostalgic Honey is always one of those inks that I'm like, I think I should have gotten a bottle, but I don't know. I also have other browns. So Iron Gall inks are beautiful, but it's high-end, like high-end cars. You need proper maintenance. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way of looking at it. Hi, Etharak. How's it going? Not a fan of Iron Gall myself. Yeah. I have heard sort of it could go either way, maybe, depending on like what kind of inks you're into. Some more maintenance and pigment inks. Oh, okay, you have a bottle. It does. Okay. That's good to know. It cannot clog and it can corrode non-gold components. Oh. This is your favorite Iron Gall inks? Oh, this is fun. That's such a fun color. Medium yellow orange. At the palest, it's almost yellow. The darkest, it reaches a bright red. Whoa, this is a summer color. This is like a summer like drink that you could have with pineapple in it. Pineapple mango. Diamine Honey Burst. I love when retailers have inks, but they don't have ink swatches. It's like, how am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know what it looks like from the bottle? Okay, Venice. Here we go. Honey Burst. Oh, that's nice. That's lighter than Honeybee from Robert Oster, which is more like a yellowish brown or brown yellow. But this is like a lighter version or a lighter color. I like it. Looks like wheat or something. Yeah, fair enough. This is why I ask y'all. This is why I ask too. I'm like, I don't know. What does everyone else think? It can if left long enough in them. That's More finicky than a pigment ink, for sure. I only have this Iron Gall ink. Yeah. Use Iron Gall ink in your TWSBI Eco with no issues. Use it often enough. There's also Tobacco Burst. Burst. Darker, yeah, darker version of it. You still get some of that warmth, like the honey warmth, but it looks like it's pretty dark when you write with it initially at first, or initially when you're writing with it. Though I feel like, especially with these types of inks and these shades, when you first write with it, it's like the saturated version, right? So you get the dark version of that color. And then as you keep writing with it, especially if it's like long form written piece, then you get to a point where it's like less saturated. You get the warmer sort of yellowish tones or the underlying colors too. Diamond did a whole line of inks based on Gibson guitar paint finishes. Oh, that's interesting. Very cool. I think when I initially... Oh, okay. That's why. When I initially put in Tobacco Burst, it showed me images, of guitars, Gibson guitars. And I was like, what? Interesting. Okay. That's very cool. Very cool. So are you gonna try Iron Gall Defense D? It's always worth trying different things. But as long as you kind of are aware of, yes, use it, but with these conditions or things to look out for, to be aware of, just so, especially depending on what pen you put it in. Some, it doesn't really matter per se if you have to deep clean your pens, but others, you don't want to mess with them too much. So this version of Chrysanthemum is lilac. That's very spring. Maybe not the exact colors, but springish palettes. A spring palette, which is very nice. Probably too light of an ink color for me, but very pretty. Okay, so now that I've drawn the flowers and I've written what it is, I'm just gonna date this 9th. For hand lettering and just kind of adding a header or something like that, make it stand out, and playing around with, you know, the variation of line width. I like using the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen, because even though you can do hand lettering with their brush markers, I just find the tip for the Fudenosuke is way more controllable, especially if you're working with a small space. So I probably will eventually. Yeah, it's always worth trying out. That was the first time I tried a pigment ink. I was like very nervous about it just because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to maintain it more or maintain the pen more than I had to. But at the same time, I was like, I also don't want to just leave it and then have to deal with cleaning it out later and stuff. So just, you know, like I said, as long as you're aware of the conditions of use. I'm attracted to them for some of my processes. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so fix it by switching to a different highlighter or pen or marker. Twisby blue black. All right, so for the journaling part, I'm just going to transcribe a couple of sentences of this passage from the pivot year. So I'm not going to write the whole thing out, especially because some days it tends to be a little longer. But I do like writing out a couple of sentences of just something that kind of makes me think. So for this, I'm using the Esterbrook Estie with a Techo nib. So this is the nib that CY created especially for Esterbrook, for their special nib lineup. And I have it inked up with the upcoming Robert Oster and TheCoffeeMonsterzCo Murky Pond Water ink. So that's going to be released, I think, in April. But it is like a dark gray with underlying tones of like lavender, purple, a little bit of pink. So I did paint with it last week, and I thought, you know what, I should ink up a pen with it just to test it out. So that's what this pen is inked up with. And let me actually write up here. And then we'll take a look. I just ordered a set of Tombow markers. Yay! I hope you have fun with them. I hope you enjoy them. And push them a little bit because you can definitely use them in different and fun ways. All right, so quick look at the writing. So I'm using a Techo nib, which at a higher angle, it's custom ground from a broad nib. So it starts off with a broad. But at a higher angle, it sort of gives you a finer line. And at a lower angle, it will give you more of a broader line. So that's what the Techo is. It's CY's take of a Naginata for Esterbrook. Let me just move this a little bit. So usually what happens, or my style of writing, when I'm note-taking or I'm just printing something, I tend to write at a higher angle just because speed is a little bit, faster, I guess. It comes more natural to me. But when I'm doing journaling or like stream of consciousness writing, where I'm just writing for the sake of experiencing my pen and having fun with it, and not worrying too much about grammar and what it looks like, then I tend to write more like a cursive or like kind of a messy cursive, and for that I hold my pen at a lower angle, and so that's why I tend to appreciate the nibs that are custom ground to give you different lines based on the angle that you're holding. It's just because it's more fun for me that way, and one nib will give me different lines, and I kind of like that about having even having a reverse architect where depending on how you're holding your pen, if it's upside down or at an angle, it gives you a different look, which is interesting to me. So what I wrote down from the passage is, it is heavy because you're not supposed to carry it this far for this long. It's heavy because some part of you can sense who you would become without it. So a lot of times when we're holding on to something, it feels heavy because you're probably not meant to hold on to it for this long, especially if you're thinking about it from a creative sense. If you're on the path of exploring your creativity, or you're on a creative journey where you're trying out different things and you're trying to figure out what you're drawn to or for what works for you, a lot of times there's expectation, or you kind of expect something of yourself. You want it to look a certain way because that's what you've seen, or you want to enjoy something when maybe you don't. And just because others enjoy certain tools or certain colors, or certain inks or whatever the case is, it doesn't mean that you have to be the same, right? It doesn't mean that you have to also enjoy that. And a lot of times I found too, in practicing creativity and doing different creative things, I found that my style has evolved, my tastes have evolved. Some things that I had, enjoyed using before, I just don't enjoy now, or I just don't reach for things that I may have used in the past. And that's okay. Just trying to hold on to things or trying to make yourself like something or use something can sometimes feel like it's a lot of work, or it feels like, why am I struggling through this? Like, why am I making myself paint or draw or whatever it is, if I just don't enjoy it, right? So something to think about. I think it's very interesting to think a little bit outside of, your everyday, what you're using, what you're doing, the highlights of the day, events of the day, and kind of think about it in terms of like the bigger picture. Where are you now compared to a year ago, or compared to when you first started in your creative practice? Whether it's using fountain pens, where are you now compared to a year ago when you started, or when you were using fountain pens? Maybe you're not a beginner, but your taste may have evolved. You may have tried different things. Um, or you may have tried different things that you just aren't drawn to anymore. And it's okay to let those things go, and to move on to other things. Or it could be seasonal too, right? Like some things, while you feel like using, like for me, I love using bright, fun colors in spring and summer, but then in the fall and winter, it just feels like it's too much. It feels like why am I putting these bright ink colors on my page when I just don't feel like that? I feel like kind of being a little bit more, grounded, earthy, neutral, those kinds of vibes. So yeah, it's something to think about. And oftentimes it's kind of fun to work through it and journal about it. Not that you don't have to go too deep. You don't have to learn anything from, thinking about it. But it's kind of a different perspective, and or not a different perspective. It's your perspective, but you're looking at, different things. And yeah, and how do you move forward? Like what from now, do you want to try different things, or do you want to do the same thing? Do you want to, hone in on what it is that actually works for you and explore that more? Or is that kind of, are you at a place where you can take a few more paths and try different things, and let go what doesn't work for you, or what you're sort of, it's you've done it, you're good, you're ready to move on. So I'm going to write a few sentences just to kind of compare the different writing styles, and see what the ink looks like. So So just a little bit more writing sample. If you tend to write at a lower angle, you get a little bit more of that ink showing through. If you write at a higher angle, you're printing or something like that, you kind of see the basic. I find that, you see a little bit less of underlying tones maybe, especially if you tend to use finer nibs. And that's why it's kind of fun to paint with them, or to swatch them, or use them in, broader nibs if you can too. Especially if you are drawn to inks that have more than just, a flat color or flat shade. Oftentimes, if it's, fun combinations of inks or shades, the more you can kind of experiment with your lines, the more likely you're able to see different aspects of that ink. So it's a very nice color. It's a gray, but every time I use it or I try it out, it sort of brings out another shade with it. So, sometimes I see more of like a green gray. Sometimes it's more like a blue gray. It doesn't look like a flat gray, which is always appreciated. So yeah. So this was last week. Fun blue iris, some yellow in it too. And then this week we're going a little bit more spring. We're doing a little bit more of a spring vibe. So that's always fun. I think as, you know, we get more into the warmer months, I just tend to be drawn to more of the, you know, softer palettes and some more of the fun, vibrant colors. So lilacs are always nice, purples. Let's see, what else? Some of these fun ones. Maybe we could do a fun bright rose next time. There's a few in here. Yeah. Then we also have yellow orange palettes. More bright. So we'll see. But for now, we'll do some spring ones. And usher in the spring months. Well, that's it for me, friends. I am gonna hop off. But happy Monday. Happy Monday vibes. Happy fresh week. Hopefully the rest of your week goes well. Hopefully it's not, you know, too much. Weather is okay for you, and all those things. And I hope you do have time to kind of play with your stationery, grab your inks, grab your, you know, supplies, be creative with them, and try different things too. Try new ways of using them, if you can. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, friends. I appreciate you. If you're watching the replay, always thank you so much. I will be back on Wednesday, so same time, same place. See you there. I think we'll do a currently inked spread, and then probably play with inks, but we'll see. See you there. But thank you so much for being here, friends. I'll see you next time, okay? Bye.